365 days ago, there was not a lot of optimism around the Toronto Blue Jays, but just a few months ago, the Jays were inches away from being World Series champions. There is a ton of pressure and a ton of optimism around the Jays heading into the 26th season, and a lot of that comes from what they were able to do with this lineup. So, no Bo Bichette. How is it going to look? Let's break down the position players for the Blue Jays as we start our Blue Jays season preview here on Couch Potato Diary. Like I said, that this team, it has been quite the journey the last year for Toronto to get to this point, but there's a lot of optimism around the Blue Jays coming into this season. So we're going to start our Blue Jays season preview looking at the lineup. We're then going to go into the pitching staff and further break down some things when it comes to X factors and all of that. But for this lineup, obviously, Vlad Guerrero Jr. in the middle of it is the straw that stirs the drink, right? And I do think that we have seen an official leveling up for Vladdy. I don't think he's going to be playoff Vladdy and he's going to hit 100 home runs or anything like that. But given how much pressure was on him in the postseason and how he lived up to every single moment in that playoff run, and then transitioning into the World Baseball Classic, extra base hit in every game, still playing with that fire, still playing with that passion. That's exhausting to do over 162 games, but I think that we have seen the Vlad Guerrero Jr. and pushing up on that ceiling that a lot of us thought he could get to, where he's an MVP candidate. I think him being plus 1,300 to be an MVP in the MLB this season is a little bit long. I think that is genuinely in his range of outcomes this season as he just puts on an MVP caliber performance for the Blue Jays. Remember, he was banged up for a little bit toward the back part of last season before they got into the playoffs. So I think that there is going to be a very big season coming from him. It's the rest of the lineup that obviously there are some question marks around, right? Because Bo Bichette leaves. He's now with the New York Mets. And I know he wasn't there for a lot of the playoff run, so a lot of people who did kind of jump along, it's like, okay, well, didn't really miss him. This guy almost led the majors in baseball despite missing a month in hits, which is a counting stat. That's insane that he was able to do that. So obviously missing that table setter at the top of your lineup is going to be impactful. But I do think that there is, again, an evolution, a stepping up, a leveling up, whatever you want to call it, with some of these players. It's just the one that kind of, the part of it with Bo being gone that fascinates me is what do they do in that two-hole? I didn't like it that Nathan Lucas was getting all of those at-bats, batting between Springer and Vlad as the postseason went along. I think he was a great story and it was cool, but I think there was a little bit too much out in his game. I think they probably should have moved Ernie Clement up there. But I also don't know if I'm trusting Ernie Clement in that spot over 162 games. So we'll see what they end up doing there. It's going to be a big rotation. This is going to be all over the place for Toronto. They said on the spring broadcast the other day, the Jays used something like 140 lineups last season, 140 different lineups last season. It's going to be that way again for Toronto here. So I'm really interested to see what they do in the two-hole. Leading off, George Springer was phenomenal last season. He's got a bobblehead of one of the great Blue Jay moments of the last 30 years, and really one of the great Blue Jay moments of all time, with the home run that sends this team to the World Series in Game 7 against the Seattle Mariners. There are a lot of people assuming that there is going to be a bit of regression here for him, and I think it would be insane to not assume that. He was playing close to an all-star level for most of last season. He did get banged up a little bit, but the dude's 37. That's going to happen. So I do think you have to bake in a little bit of regression, but I do think him being the designated hitter is going to be very helpful for him to just be able to focus on hitting and kind of save those legs a little bit more. So I think that's going to be a big thing for him, and I think he's going to have still a good year, but I don't think it's going to reach the levels of last season. The one guy who I think is really important that he is able to kind of get back to last year is Alejandro Kirk. He is the one, like Vladdy can do his thing. We'll see who's batting cleanup after that. And then Kirk kind of starts the lineup over again at 5 and gets it going for the bottom half of the lineup. His contact is incredible. His plate coverage is great. A little bit of pop, maybe not as much as we thought he was going to have when he came up and was an all-star initially, but he is a really important part of this lineup I'm not saying you need to be back right around 300 or anything like that, but it can't be down at like 230 or something like that, where he was kind of residing over a couple of seasons before last year. I do think behind him, because it did seem like he wore down as the season went on, right? And then he has a really strong finish to the year and was good in the postseason. Unfortunate that he is the one who gets doubled off to close things out. But I'm excited for what he can be this year. I do think that we're going to see a little bit more Heineman. And I even think Brendan Valenzuela, who had a good spring, is going to make a few appearances to just kind of save some miles on Alejandro Kirk, because he's so important to the pitching staff also. But the big breakouts, I think, are coming with Varsho and with Barger. I talked about it in the team preview. I've talked about it in the season preview, where I think Barger is going to be one of the breakout stars of MLB. I think there's a world Addison Barger is an all-star this year. I wish there was some kind of a future bet that you could place on that. I think he has figured things out. He is an exit velocity king. He hits the ball really, really hard, and he has really found his way to be a pretty consistent Major League Baseball hitter. So I think he's going to have a great season this year. And for Varsho, said it before, he had a 45 home run, 120 RBI pace last year. Hit 235, but he was playing at that pace. He did get hurt, and that is what kind of slowed things up for him a little bit. But he's been incredible all spring long, and in a contract year for him, I think that this is going to be a really motivated and very, very good Daulton Varsho. X factor is obviously Okamoto, with the power numbers that he was able to put up in Japan. Didn't strike out a ton. Obviously, there is a bit of a gap between the NPB and Major League Baseball. So what does he provide? But again, he's going to be down in the 8 slot. There's going to be some power coming from this team down at the bottom of the order with him, with Sanchez this season. Also, Lucas down there as well. We'll see about Davis Schneider, if he's able to make the squad or not. Taping this on the Wednesday before the season. So haven't got that lineup news yet. But that is the last part of this, is we talk about how, there's going to be regression coming from all of these guys. Probably. Yeah, like I said, there is going to be probably a bit of a setback. The one thing that this team did so well last year that I think they'll do again this year, that they have a very, very smart hitting coach and that whole department of things. But with John Schneider and the rest of the staff, they put these guys in the best spot to succeed always. And so, yeah, maybe we are going to see them break the platoon a little bit more this year, with Barger against some lefties, with Varsho against some lefties, at least probably to start the season. But for guys like Lucas and Schneider and Sanchez, the reason you feel optimistic for them isn't because you think they're going to be great for 162. It's that for the 80, 90 games that they play this year, they're going to be put in the best positions to succeed. And that's where I think you feel really comfortable about this team, is that it's not just all these guys happen to be great at the same time. It's that Schneider, the analytics department, and everyone else in the organization figured out the best way to utilize all these guys against the best pitchers, which mixing and matching and all of that. And they have that variety again in this lineup, and that's why I have confidence that the lineup is going to be good. And then you look at some of the replacements that are coming. If someone gets hurt, Eloy Jimenez, there's some pop there. Obviously, we saw that in the spring. I don't think you're relying on him defensively a whole lot. Miles Straw, we haven't even talked about him, but as a runner and a defensive replacement, I think is going to help a lot of things out as well. And I think Josh Kashovich has something to say about how this season goes also. You just hear everything about his work ethic and how much people are raving about him. I know there's some concern about middle infield depth for this team, but I do think that if it comes down to it, this dude is going to be able to have a bit of an impact there for the Blue Jays. So that's what I think for the offense, for the upcoming season, and for the lineup. I didn't mention defensively. This team is probably taking a step forward defensively this year, with now Jimenez at shortstop, Clement up the middle. Okamoto can play a pretty solid third base as well, and you have a Gold Glove caliber first baseman in Vlad Guerrero Jr., same thing behind the plate with Alejandro Kirk. So defensively, all throughout the field, you feel very, very good about where this team is at. What are you guys looking for from the Blue Jays offense this season? And am I off on anyone? But I'm feeling really optimistic about things. Let me know in the comments, and we can keep the conversation going there. If you are watching this on YouTube and want to bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go, hit me up on the podcast. You can find it on, just search Couch Potato Diary on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's move to hockey now, and we're in the final stretch of the NHL season, and I think we're finally at a point where we can separate pretenders from contenders, right? Because a lot of this year was, oh, well, so many teams in the mix, who knows? Well, now we know. So today, gonna split them up. Not gonna do just straight up power rankings. We're going to tier this thing off. Who can win a championship this year? Who is on the rise and who's not? Let's rank everyone in the NHL. Let's tier this thing out, shall we? All right, it is the tier rankings for the National Hockey League, and it's fitting that we call it that because we're going to start with the teams that are shedding tiers. This first group called Mission McKenna. Yes, I know Stenberg is in there as well, but Mission McKenna is more fun to say. So, two teams in this spot, although one of them on a heater right now with the Calgary Flames, but it's the Flames and the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks are spectacularly tanking, just genuinely one of the worst teams that we've seen in a really long time in terms of the on-ice product. The Flames made their moves, sending out Anderson, sending out Uyghur, sending out Kadri. Now, they have had a bit of a bump over the last little bit with guys like Strome and Olofsson playing pretty well. They have the goalies that can steal some games for them, but make no mistake about it, this is a team that is hoping lottery balls go their way coming up in the beginning of May. So those are two teams that are firmly in Mission McKenna categories. Now, it's funny, I made this a few days ago. Honestly, it might have been a week ago now. And so obviously some things have shifted here because the next group is just called Uh-oh. And they are obviously starting in the bad direction, but still have a little bit of falling to go. I don't think we have reached rock bottom for these teams yet. And I had Nashville in this spot. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. They are absolutely on a bit of a heater right now in the Western Conference. So I'm going to you guys can't see, but I download the PDF for all this, and so right now I'm just drawing and very badly printing Nashville's name in a different spot and crossing them out in the uh-oh category. But this is the team that hasn't quite reached rock bottom just yet. And we got three teams there: the Toronto Maple Leafs, the St. Louis Blues, and the New York Rangers. The Rangers, the sell-off, it began with Panarin, but it didn't get as extensive as I think a lot of people were expecting it to. So that they still have Trocheck that they can move out. We'll see what they do with Lafreniere, and then the big question between the pipes with Shesterkin, and I guess Fox as well a little bit too. But there's still worse to go for the Rangers, although they're in a pretty good spot ping-pong balls-wise right now because the Flames have won 4 games in a row. For the St. Louis Blues, I thought they had a great not trade period. We talked about them in winners and losers, that video up on YouTube right now. But they still, I think, have a bit more bottom to get to because they can still move Binnington and Thomas and maybe a couple other guys. Well, Bushnevich probably not, but they still have a few moves that they can make before this thing really bottoms out. And then Toronto, they're reaching the bottom without even trying to. Just a spectacularly awful trade for Brandon Carlo last year. Now has a top prospect playing very well for the Bruins, and the Leafs in a spot where it doesn't seem likely that they'll even get their first round pick this year, and it might be a couple of seasons based on all the weird protections that True Living likes to throw on things. So it's been bad this year in Toronto, and it could get worse. So I have them in the uh-oh category. Up next, we have Something's Brewing. Teams that are on the come up, but not quite in the watch out for these guys one. But things are improving. And that category includes Philadelphia and Chicago. I like a lot of the young players that the Philadelphia Flyers have been able to bring in over the last few seasons, and that they've been able to stay relatively competitive this year. It's not going to include a postseason berth, I don't believe, anyway, but there is something that you really like happening out in Philadelphia right now with so much of the young talent that's out there. And with Chicago, the big thing is Connor Bedard is looking like the superstar that a lot of people projected him to be a couple of seasons ago. Before we keep going, I do want to remind you guys that we have a podcast with Couch Potato Diary called Couch Potato Diary. So give it a look, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. Also, if you want to help to support the show, there's a tip jar that is in the link down below if you are watching this on YouTube, or in the show notes if you are watching this if you're listening to this in podcast form, and on Twitch and on Kick, it is in the panels there. So let's get right back to it. Up next, we have the little mean, but we have the NPCs. These are teams that are, look, it's the NPCs. They're around, they play every night or every other night or something, and they're just kind of there. So I have a few teams in this spot here. First, we have the Boston Bruins. They lost to the Leafs the other night. They're probably going to be a playoff team. They have Geeky, which is exciting. They have Pasternak, who we know. But aside from that, they're just kind of there for me. I don't view them as a threat to win even around in the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to bottom out or anything like that. It's weird to have a team of such prestige in this spot, but I have the Bruins as an NPC. Up next, the Washington Capitals. Now, they actually made some rebuildy type moves in the offseason to try to gear up for next year, but it's unfortunate to have Alex Ovechkin in potentially his final year in the NHL in this spot, but they have a name. I don't get excited when they come on the TV, aside from the Ovechkin factor. I don't think they're much of a factor in the playoff race. They're just there for me this season. The Seattle Kraken are in this one as well. Yes, they're going for it in a playoff spot, and that's great. And gosh golly gee, do they have to, because sounds like a basketball team is coming out there, and we know how popular that sport is out in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. So there's certainly some pressure there. But as far as teams go, they're just there for me right now. The LA Kings also in this spot, losing to the Flames the other night in a shootout, wildly disappointing for them. They have been knocking on the door for the playoffs all season long. Goal scoring has always been an issue this year for this team, and it was last year with the exception of 6 weeks at the end of the year. And so again, like there are teams below them that I am more interested in. Down the stretch here. So for me, the Kings just kind of there. Same with the New Jersey Devils. Yes, Jack Hughes, it's very exciting with half a tooth that he was able to go score a goal that just went right through the net and straight into the Hockey Hall of Fame. But aside from that, like this team has had some controversies around it. On the ice, it hasn't come close to living up to a lot of the expectations that people had for them. They locked in Jacob Markstrom to an extension at the absolute worst possible time. So it's not great there. And now, it's weird that this is an improvement, but I have moved Nashville up into this category. They go from uh-oh to okay. Like they have some stars, and that's fun. And they've been able to make this push, and that's cool. But I'm not stoked when, okay, time to watch the Preds now, or anything like that. They're just there for me in this playoff race, and it kind of feels like, to me anyway, they're holding a spot, and hopefully a more exciting team can leapfrog them to get into there. So those are the NPCs. Up next, the future problem teams. They're not quite the, oh my gosh, look out, but they are... They're right there. They are very, very close. And again, I'm seeing some issues with how I did this. So just going to quickly, I had Buffalo in this spot here, but they're proving that they are the real deal. Up first in this is the Detroit Red Wings. The problem for the Red Wings is that they have been in this spot for a while, but They at least were aggressive at the deadline. Injuries have hit them at the worst possible time, and then a really bad loss to Ottawa on Tuesday. A Sens team that had 2 rookies on their blue line to still lose that game is really disappointing for them. The thing that puts them in the future problems category and not as an NPC is that the high-level talent on this team, I think, is exceptional. When you see how well all of these guys played at the Olympics and the talent that you can have with Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond, Seider, and that group, the goaltending has been good this season. They just haven't figured out that depth part of it, and they tried to make the move with Justin Falk at the trade deadline, and apparently he's fit in really, really well there, but they still have not been able to figure out this bottom 6 and the center spot, and it's been a bit of a problem out in Detroit. But I still think if they can get that sorted, this team is a real problem. It's just, it's been a little tough here this season again. I have Ottawa here, and now the Sens are making a really good push right now. The reason I have them as a future problem instead of like really knocking on the door is the struggles they had at the beginning of the season. But you look at it, like every underlying number is telling you this is a good hockey team, and the goaltending just didn't live up to it. But they have a goalie in Ullmark who can get there, and so that's why. Like I think this year, I do think they probably get in. I don't know how much noise they're going to make, but next year I think they're going to be a real problem for teams if that goaltending situation can kind of normalize. I have Utah here as well. They're in a tough spot because of the division that they play in, but they're going to be a wild card team. I like being aggressive and adding Mackenzie Weegar. All of their star young players are kind of progressing in the same direction, and Vemelka looks like he can be a guy between the pipes. So this year is going to be the, I know this didn't go well for the Blue Jays, but it does kind of feel like this is the trailer and next year is the movie, where this is the, let's get these dudes playoff experience, let's see where they're at, and then next year they're really going to make a push. But big things are brewing out in Utah. Up next is the San Jose Sharks. It does seem like every time they play a big game that could get them over the hump, it just doesn't go their way. So it feels like they're still a year away from being a year away, but they're right there with Macklin Celebrini being a star and some of the other young players they're developing the way that you would want them to. I think a good offseason now for San Jose, and they could win the division in 2026-27. Last one here, the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have some young pieces that just it hasn't clicked in the way that they would have wanted it to. Bowness coming in has really elevated a lot of players on this team. And Werenski, a lot of people agree that he's one of the best defensemen in the NHL, and I still think he's a little bit underrated. That's how good this guy really is on that blue line out in Columbus. So I still think that they are a move or two away from being a real threat, but they have some guys who I think could be knocking on the door of superstardom. So those are the teams that I have as future problems. Now we get into the tier that is knocking on the door. They are right there to get into contendership. And we will begin with the Montreal Canadiens. A lot of people wanted them to be aggressive at this year's trade deadline. And you see it the other night with Slafkovsky and Caulfield and Suzuki combining, I think it was 9 points, or no, it was 13 points in the game that they played. I believe it was over the weekend or maybe on Monday. But no, it was over the weekend. But this team with them, the incredible youth and talent they have on the blue line, if they can get any kind of saves, whether it be from Dobish or Montembeault or Fowler or whoever, this is a team that I still think even this year, the range of outcomes is get to a Stanley Cup. So they are like right there, and maybe a true second line center away from being a true legitimate Stanley Cup contender instead of just, yeah, well, maybe. Like they are right there. New York Islanders, kind of the same thing. And it's funny, these two teams are side by side because of the Dobson trade that happened at the draft last year, but Schaefer has come in and changed the entire dynamic of this team, and now they are bringing in a little bit more speed and skill with guys like Shen, and trying to add to that. Instead of just playing that lockdown defensive style, you now have a defenseman who can quickly get the puck out of his zone up to a pretty talented group of forwards. This team's right there for contention. I think just another year of development from Schaefer, maybe a little bit more skill on the offensive side, but like overall, very good team, and they are right there knocking on the door. I have Anaheim there as well. Looks like they're going to win the Pacific Division. They got the win against the Canucks on Tuesday. I love so much of the skill on this team. They have a goalie that I think can steal rounds in the playoffs, not just games, but rounds. I think adding Carlson was really important. I hated how this team looked defensively. Not that Carlson is just pure lockdown guy, but he can at least be better than what they had defensively out there. And again, able to get the pucks up to the very exciting young talent that this team has offensively. I think they have all the tools. I think they get pretty close this year, but just because of the division that they play in, I think next year is the year that they are legitimately a cup contender. I have Vegas knocking on the door here. I don't have them in the cup contention category. It's just something is off there. Goaltending is becoming a problem, obviously. Carter Hart and everything has that's not worked. They've had injuries galore, and Marner has been good, but they haven't been able to fix a lot of the secondary scoring issues that they had from last season, and that's carrying into this year. They can't beat any good teams or anything like that, but you still can't put them back anywhere beyond like a tier below being a cup contender because of how much talent is residing on this hockey team, and how those fixes are pretty easy fixes for an aggressive group. So I have them still knocking on the door. I have Edmonton there as well. The Draisaitl injury is tough. I I know McDavid is making a lot of comments about John Cooper and everything like that, but so it feels weird again to have the best player in the world not in the cup contender category, and the team that's been to back-to-back Stanley Cups and 3 straight Western Conference Finals not be in Stanley Cup contender category. But I just don't think the forward depth is there. The goaltending situation's a disaster, and the blue line bringing in Murphy helps, but it's not really set up. Again, one good offseason fixes a lot of this. And you're always going to be knocking on the door when you have Draisaitl, who's again hurt, but not career ending. And you have McDavid, you're always going to be knocking on the door. They have really struggled in finding those supplementary guys, especially after they found them a couple of years ago with Fogle and McLeod and that group that they let walk, and have now spent the money on Mangiapane, who they had to attach a first two to get out of there, and bringing in Frederick and spending that money on Wallman. It just hasn't really been all that great. They don't have a ton of cap space, but if they can finally get a hit or two, then they're right up in cup contention again. So they're not that far away. It's just the reason that they're far away is the same reason that they've always been. Maybe not right knocking on the door there, but they literally, I have them knocking on the door here. And the last one, the Buffalo Sabres. Again, I had them down a couple of notches on this, but it is so clear now that something has just clicked, and all the high-level talent that this team has and has had for a while has figured it out. And the goaltending is there also. It's a good hockey team. I think that getting this experience is going to be good, and then being able to level that up into next year. But I also think showing how good this team is in the playoffs and showing how close they can be is going to help maybe turn a couple of those no trade clauses into players that are on their team. And so that's why I think that improvement comes and pushes them a little bit closer to cup contender status. But right now they're just knocking on the door. We also have just a quick little side quest one. This is the Mind the Gap, where this year it wasn't working, but I think they'll be back next year, but they don't fit in any of the other categories. I have Florida and Winnipeg. Florida, it's obvious. Injuries were a major problem all season long, and all their guys played a ton of hockey, and it didn't click. When everyone's healthy with a full summer off next year, this is a cup contender. They're just not there this year, and I had to put them somewhere here. And Winnipeg, I know that the issues with Winnipeg are a little bit more fundamental than they are with just Florida, with just injuries. I think you could explain it away in Winnipeg as just injuries, but this team needs a second line center. This team needs more speed throughout this lineup. It's a slow group. Getting Hellebuck to a full season, again, will be important for them, but they have a couple of additions that they can make, but they are just right there again. So I think this was an unusually down year for them. Maybe the draft lottery goes their way and they're able to bounce right back. So I didn't think they landed in any of these other spots. And I think with just a couple of the right moves, they're right back into cup contention. But it felt like a different tier than knocking on the door. So now we get the teams that could win it all. These teams are parade ready. We begin with the Colorado Avalanche, obviously, right? They're the best team in the NHL. You have one of the best players in the NHL in Nathan MacKinnon. They added mucho depth at forward when they brought in Waugh, and then everyone's like, okay, well, I guess that takes him out of the Kadri business, and it didn't, and they brought him in as well. So much talent on the blue line. The goaltending is sometimes a question mark, but right now this season it's been great for them. So there isn't much for weakness on this hockey team at this particular time, and obviously they are ready for a push to the Stanley Cup. Dallas is in that spot as well, making the run that they did without Rantanen, bringing in Tyler Myers to kind of solidify that blue line. I wish they would have brought someone a little bit better in, and Myers to really solidify things, but Ottinger is a goalie who can win a Stanley Cup. This forward group has so much speed, so much talent that it's ready to win a Stanley Cup. You have Heiskanen on the blue line, one of the best defensemen in the league. This team's there. They are right there as a Stanley Cup threat. The Minnesota Wild, I also have there. I love the talent that this team has. That they have. I know Gustafsson let in a bad one the other night, but they have a ton of talent up and down the lineup. I like the goalie situation. Hughes turns this into, gives them their own version of Makar and Taves. Kaprizov up front with some of the other players that they have up there. I like so much of this team. That central side of the bracket is going to be insane in the playoffs because the top three teams all are Stanley Cup threats. 2 from the East, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I said the other day, we cannot sleep on the Lightning just because we're used to them being in this spot and we kind of take it for granted how good this team can be. I'm not going to just like, okay, well, yeah. No, really good hockey team. Knows what it takes to play winning playoff hockey. And a lot of these guys who are banged up, they don't have as many miles on them for this season. So when you look at a team that can throw out Kucherov, Hagel, Point, and can play that playoff style, Gensel, Sorelli, kind of same thing, Hedman on the blue line, and then the best goalie in the world between the pipes, obviously, all of that screams Stanley Cup contender. And begrudgingly, I still put Carolina in here. Stankoven has fit there so effectively. And the skilled players they have at forward, adding Ehlers has been an excellent find for them as well. Defensively, you know they're always going to play a sound defensive style because of Rob Brind'Amour. There are questions about the goaltending, but if that style can get them there, or if one of the goalies can get hot, this is certainly a team that can win the Stanley Cup. So those 5 teams are parade ready, I think, for the upcoming season. I'm going to assume, again, I didn't go 32 for 32. Where's your disagreement with me in these power rankings and in, I guess, these tier rankings? Let me know in the comments or get at me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein. And while we're at it, hit that share button. Trying to grow the channel. Love talking hockey with a lot of you that come into the comments and everything like that, but want to grow this, want to give you guys more people to talk with in the comments. So let me know, or not let me know, let them know that we got a good thing happening here, and hit that share button and send this out to a couple of friends that you either want to brag to or just rage bait with the content here on Couch Potato Diary. Back to the NFL now, and again, the big names in free agency, a lot of them have come off of the board, and some teams might be gearing up for the draft. But I think there's still some really important moves that could be made. So the other day went through the AFC, today going through the NFC, and seeing one signing that each team could make that could really put themselves in a great spot going into the upcoming season. Like I said, went through the AFC, now doing the NFC, and when I went through this, I obviously gave priority to the teams that had the most salary cap space and kind of worked my way down. Tried to make it as realistic as possible for these teams, so that's why some of them making bigger splashes than others. Let's start in the NFC East, and we'll go with the Philadelphia Eagles. They've lost a little bit on defense this year. I think they go with a reclamation project. Reclamation's a bit of a strong word, but Cam Jordan, I think they will bring in the podcasting pass rusher from the New Orleans Saints and see if they can get another productive season out of him, and just kind of helping out there on the edge, adding to some of that depth that they like to roll through out in Philadelphia. With the Washington Commanders, I'm going Deebo Samuel, giving them a weapon that they can use. I guess it's a re-signing out there, but I really do think that he can be a valuable part of this offense when Terry McLaurin is healthy, when Jaden Daniels is healthy, and this offense can kind of get back to where they need to be. It was a weird year offensively in Washington. I still think there is room for that skill set of Deebo with the Washington Commanders. Next, the Dallas Cowboys. I have them going with Kyle Van Noy on the edge, looking to replace still Micah Parsons. They've made quite a few moves defensively to try to shore some things up. I still think they need that high-level edge rusher. Van Noy, maybe we're not fully replacing Micah Parsons, obviously, but Kyle Van Noy can still be a productive guy on a defense to kind of help solidify some things on what is growing into a pretty good defensive line with the Cowboys. And for the New York Giants, also going on the defensive line, but on the interior, and we're going Mario Edwards. They've made some big splashes to help out on the edge. Now I think you try to plug things up in the middle with Edwards. Still a guy who can get after the quarterback and help some things out, but I think this will really kind of help solidify the Giants defense as they look to the draft to maybe help out with their young quarterback a little bit more. NFC North, we start with the Chicago Bears, who don't have a whole lot of salary cap space to work with. I'm going Dante Fowler for them, one of those veteran pass rushers that just seems to be maybe a little undervalued in free agency because there are a few guys who are like that. I think Fowler can come in, fit this defense well, replace a couple of guys who have gone out, and help keep this Bears defense being as productive as it was a season ago. For the Green Bay Packers, everyone loves an interior offensive lineman. So I'm going Joel Bitonio to help out on the interior of the offensive line, helping out with the run game with Josh Jacobs and bolstering things there, because a lot of the other pieces you really like with Green Bay right now. Minnesota, I'm going at the safety spot, Donovan Wilson. I like a lot of what Minnesota can put together. I think they're really intriguing with Kyler Murray on the offensive side, and I think the weapons that they have pretty solidified. Offensive line, I think, is fine. The defense, I think it's a good group as well, and I think Wilson at the top of it can really fit in with Coach Flores and everything they're doing out in Minnesota. And then with the Detroit Lions, I'm going Jonah Williams on the offensive line. Decker leaving. That they've had some issues on the offensive line last season. They were bottom third in the league in both run and pass blocking. So they're going to need a little bit of help. I don't think they've addressed it enough in free agency so far, and I think Jonah Williams can help them out. We go to the NFC South in just a moment, but first, I do want to remind you that there's a podcast for Couch Potato Diary. So check out Couch Potato Diary in podcast form on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. We go now to the NFC South, and again, we go the interior of the defensive line for the Carolina Panthers, making the big splash, going out and getting Jalen Phillips to really lock some things in on defense. I think you help out down the middle as well and bring in a Trevor Penning. Again, not a team that has a ton of cap space left, but just solidify that defensive rotation on the line. Turn this into a team that's going to be tough to get anything going against in that front seven and try to win that trenches battle that way. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've lost a little bit at linebacker, so bringing in the veteran Bobby Wagner. No, he's not what he was with the Legion of Boom, or what he was even a couple of seasons ago with Washington, but I still think he can be productive in the middle of a defense at the linebacker spot and help out Tampa Bay where they need it. Going real veteran for the Atlanta Falcons with Marshawn Lattimore. They have $15 million in cap space. I still think they need a little bit of help in the secondary. Lattimore's not what he was. He is a bigger name than he is a producer, but I still think it helps depth-wise and just overall talent-wise for the secondary of the Falcons. For the New Orleans Saints, I'm going DJ Reader at defensive tackle. Tyler Shug has been fun, and bringing in HN Jr. At running back, I think kind of helps out that room. Olave, a very solid number one. I think you need to focus a little bit on a defense that was better than people thought last year, but helping out in the run game, maybe getting after the quarterback from the middle as well, and I think Reader can help out as a veteran presence there on an up-and-coming New Orleans Saints team. Flying through this one, we go to the NFC West. Seattle lost quite a bit in the secondary, so maybe I should have gone there, but I'm going to help out in the middle of the offensive line and going Kevin Zeitler for this team. I still think that while it was able to produce last year and Sam Darnold was great, I still think long-term, getting some help in the middle of that offensive line, giving Darnold maybe a little bit more time, helping out now with Charbonnet and whoever they get to replace Walker is going to make a very dangerous offense, even that more dangerous going into next season. For the LA Rams, I don't know, I wrote this very poorly. I am going with offensive lineman Fred Johnson. Again, this is a team that I like so many pieces of the LA Rams, and they have talent all over the field, so I think adding to that depth, helping out a little bit on the offensive line, helps them out there. San Francisco, they need depth on defense. We have seen that with a lot of injury issues that they've had over the years. I think long-term, they need a lot of youth and athleticism on the defensive side, but for now, we're going the opposite of youth and bringing in Jadeveon Clowney to help out with this pass rush. You got a couple good quarterbacks that you're facing in this division. Need to get after them a little bit, and I think Clowney can still do that and help out San Francisco. And last one here for the Arizona Cardinals. Again, a bit of a tricky team because I don't think they're trying to be good this year. So I think Mekhi Becton goes there after a year that wasn't necessarily what he would have wanted with the LA Chargers, I think. But again, a lot of injuries there. So get another payday, maybe try to reestablish your brand and get one more big one, or get moved at the deadline to a contender. But I think he goes to the Arizona Cardinals and enjoy some of the warm weather out there. So let me know what you guys think. Like with your team, was I way off? If I didn't talk about your team, it's because they're in the AFC, and we did that video before. So check that one out now as well. But yeah. Did I completely whiff on a need that your team has, or am I misplacing a couple of guys? Let me know in the comments, and we can chat about it there. Also, I do want to remind you, if you want to support the show, a number of ways to do it. We got the podcast. You can go rate, review, subscribe now wherever you get your pods, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, all those different places. We are everywhere. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. That stuff really does help out as well. A lot of times we go live. It's on Twitch and Kick also. So twitch.tv/primetimepk and kick.com/primetimepk. Check those out. And financially, just watching or listening means the world to me, but there is a tip jar. It is available in the link in the show notes or in the description, depending on where you are consuming this.